We're going to shake the tree today with this question. As a rancher, is owning cows in a cow-calf operation your best option?
Enterprise, a really difficult enterprise to turn a profit in.
Mm-hmm. So, Dallas Mount, CEO for Ranch Management Consultants, returns as a guest as we evaluate owning cows in a cow-calf operation. Yes, there's positives to which we'll talk about, but there's also some serious downsides. Why is he negative on owning cows, and what do you measure against to validate the negatives of owning cows? Oh man, we're going to stir things up today on this episode of the Working Ranch Radio Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. Thanks for joining us here on our program. By the way, today is episode 62, so if you want to go back and you want to listen to it we're pretty much on any podcast provider out there. If you search under Working Ranch Radio Show, you will find us, and this is episode 62. You know, we've really had some great episodes here lately, and not to downplay what we've had prior to that, but really some great ones. Last week, we were talking with Clint Berry on marketing your cattle in 2022. The week before that was with meteorologist Don Day on the weather outlook for 2022. And then in episode 59, we were talking about, have you thought about running sheep? Now, I know that's not for everybody, but nevertheless, it was an episode that I think maybe provoked some thought, which is kind of the vein of where I'm at with today's show. And I know for some folks, you're going to maybe bow up a little bit when we talk about why do you own your cows in a cow-calf operation. And I think you're going to hear some good dialogue today between Dallas Mount and myself. Dallas is the CEO for Ranch Management Consultants. I've had him on our show before as we've talked about some other things regarding profit-minded business thinking when it comes to your ranching operation. And really, that's where some of this is coming from. And I don't think you're going to hear today that if you own your own cows that you're an absolute idiot. That's not the point of it, other than I think if anything, it's just creating some thought. You know, do you go back and you kind of reevaluate? As I said in the opening, I said we're going to shake the tree today with these questions. Well, in the wild or out in the open, and the thing that was going through my head at that particular time, to use that analogy, is wind. And of course, wind in a stand of trees is very important, because as it bends and moves those trees around as they mature and they grow, because of that wind and that stress, it causes them to grow stronger. And so I think today's episode, it's wind. It's something that I hope maybe blows against some of the thought processes you've had. It may not change what you do, and that's fine. But at the same time, it may challenge you to go back and reevaluate some things. And if anything, really at the end of the day in the ranching business, for me, it's really important that we are sustainable, that we can keep on going. And so that's kind of where some of this is coming from. So I'm really excited to share that conversation to you, with you today, with Dallas Mount, who's as I said before, the CEO for Ranch Management Consultants, on why do we own cows when we're in a cow-calf operation. So also joining us here in just a moment, the Captain Tim O'Byrne will be by with this week's edition of Tim's 2 Cents, and meteorologist Don Day will join us at the very last segment of our program here today to give us a look at our long-term weather. Right now, a thank you and a shout out to our sponsors of the Working Ranch Radio Show, the American Simmental Association, and we are right in the middle of bull buying season. From maternal traits to terminal traits, the genetic merit of Simmental Genetics has provided increased profitability to the rancher. SimGenetics, profit through science. Find out more at simmental.org. Bobcat, one tough tractor. Visit bobcat.com and use the build and quote tool to design your ideal machine. The American Hereford Association, come home to Hereford. The North American Limousine Foundation, limousine cattle deliver to your bottom line. And the American Angus Association, look for the registration number and buy the power, buy registered Angus bulls. On our bull sale calendar coming up, Keneally Angus with their spring bull sale coming up on Saturday, March 26th. That's the fourth Saturday of this month. That'll be at 12 o'clock. Their ranch at Whitman, Nebraska. They'll be selling about 550 head of coming twos, 18-month and long yearlings, as well as some heifer calves. You can check that out at KeneallyAngus.com for more information. Also, that will be on Northern Livestock Video Auction. Also on our production sale calendar, DLCC Ranch with their 30th annual sale coming up on Saturday, April 16th there at the ranch at Pierre's, Minnesota. Now, they're going to be offering over 90 head of South Devon and South Devon influenced composite bulls, yearling and 18-month-old bulls. Also, some females will be featured in that sale as well. If you'd like to find out more information or to give them a call, go to their website. You can register to get a catalog at dlccranch.com. That'll also be on Superior's click to bid for DLCC Ranch. Again, that sale Saturday, April 16th. Well, it's time now to check in with the Captain, Tim O'Byrne, publisher and editor of Working Ranch Magazine, for this week's edition of Tim's 2 Cents.
Hey, Justin. Hey, everybody out there in Working Ranch Radio Land. Your April-May issue of Working Ranch Magazine should be in the mailbox here pretty quick. This episode of the show is all about reevaluation, and I'm a big fan of that. I think that is a very wise thing for people to take time to reevaluate every element of your life on a certain interval. And I think the message of this show is going to help a lot of people out there. So, Justin, take it away.
You bet. Thanks, Captain. And I do want to point out that if you do not have your subscription to the Working Ranch Magazine, branded #1 by America's Ranchers, I would encourage you to go to the website. It's really easy to do. Go to workingranchmag.com and you can get subscribed to the Working Ranch Magazine. Well, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to get into this conversation. We're going to shake the tree a little bit here as Dallas Mountain joins me. We're going to talk about owning cows in a cow-calf operation and much more in our conversation. It's not just about that. We've got a lot to talk about that I think is going to be extremely thought-provoking for us here in the ranching industry. We'll be back with more on the Working Ranch Radio Show. Starting off in the right direction is essential to gaining an advantage later when you go to market your calves. And I have proof that the right direction is with Sim Angus sired calves. A 2020 study by K-State showed that Sim Angus sired steer calves earn more at sale time than all other breed identified sire groups with at least 50 lots represented on Superior Livestock's 2020 summer sales. The proof's right there. For low-risk, high-potential calves with earning potential, be confident that Sim Genetics will give you more per head, period. Stand strong, Simmental. And we welcome you back here to the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. Glad to have you joining us on our program today as we welcome back a guest that we've had on here before. Dallas Mount, CEO of Ranch Management Consultants, is joining us. And Dallas, thanks for being here on the program today.
You bet, Justin. Happy to be back. Thanks for asking.
Well, Dallas, I think I've done a fairly decent job of kind of perking everybody's interest with the intro and our last segment here about what we were going to be talking about today in regards to owning livestock, owning the cattle in a cow-calf operation. And I know when you and I talked about that, that's an assumption that maybe when folks get into the ranching business or they go back to the ranch, that there's that assumption that if you're going to be in cow-calf, that you need to own those cows. And I think today what you're really kind of pushing back on is maybe that's an assumption we shouldn't make.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Justin. So I'm just coming off a season where we've been, working with ranchers from all over the country and doing a lot of economics. And to be, just put it, as plain English as we can, cows often are the worst enterprise when we look at it from an economic perspective. So why does everybody make the assumption when they're getting into ranching that, hey, I'm going to ranch, I'm going to run cows, right? And it seems like a given, but I think it deserves some more exploration. So that's the reason I suggested this topic today.
Well, I think it definitely deserves more explanation from you, because I think you're talking to the wrong crowd here, to be honest with you. If we're going to get on here and we're going to talk about why cows is one of the worst enterprise mix out there, and I think you have more to talk about with that. So let's get into, first of all, what are the upsides to cows? I guess let's and maybe I'm being pretty general there, because we maybe need to narrow this down, or do you feel we need to narrow this down more to the cow-calf side of things, I guess?
Yeah, I'd say let's talk about cow-calf and particularly an owned cow-calf herd, right? Okay. So it's like, so let's say you're you watched Yellowstone and you got excited about Kevin Costner, right, running around doing all that fun stuff, and so you decided I'm going to buy a ranch, right, and so you go and get a ranch, and oftentimes the next decision is, well, I've got a ranch now, let's get some cows, right, and so I think that's the automatic assumption is if you're going to ranch, you need to run cows, and those cows should be your cows. Right. So that's the thing I'd like to explore today. And maybe it's not even just starting from scratch, right? If you've been running a multi-generation family ranch and you're looking at your ranching business and maybe not happy with your financial and economic results, I think this conversation is going to hit home for you as well.
All right. So then, and I'm going to kind of rephrase what you just said, because I think there's some key points that I don't want people to miss out. And that is a cow-calf herd that you own, right? That's because I think we need to be pretty specific about that so people understand that is what we're talking about. So first of all, before we jump into the, where you're coming from, are there some upsides though on owning a cow-calf herd? Because one of the things is I've had a guy tell me, and he's very, very successful, that says, Justin, you need to own cows. You need to be owning cows. I don't necessarily own them all, at least a lot of cows, but let's talk about the upsides to owning cows.
Yeah. So I think number one is cows are a great place to build wealth. So they are in a place that grows in equity, right? For somebody like yourself, right, you're growing that cow herd over time. It's a forced savings account in one way, right? So if you're keeping heifer calves back, if you're growing this cow herd, there is wealth building going on in that, right? So there's a lot of value to that, and there's probably people that are listening to this thinking, well, I'm sure glad I built that cow herd, right? Because that's what's created some wealth for me and an opportunity to retire with, right, or some way to step aside. So the cows are a nice place to park some money that builds wealth over time. My counter argument to that was, well, if you were more profitable in another enterprise, you would have cash to park somewhere, right? So you could also build wealth somewhere else, but it wouldn't be the forced savings account that cows are, right? Because if you're growing that herd, it's essentially forcing you to take some of that money and use it to grow that cow herd with. So cows are a good place to grow money. I think that'd be the first reason. Cows have some real advantages from a tax perspective, right? You can depreciate them on as that. Now, there's a catch to that, okay? Because sometimes it becomes real depreciation. If you're running cows like everybody else is, that tax depreciation also becomes real depreciation, right? Because you've got to replace those with heifers or go out and buy cows, and if you're buying them for $2,000 and selling them for $800 5 years later, right, then that tax depreciation is real depreciation, so it becomes a real cost. There's some advantages if you're growing that cow herd and then selling those animals when they're at a high value, right? You can still and I'm not a tax accountant, so take this for what it's worth, but there's some ways where you can still count that as breeding stock, right? And get some tax advantages to that, and also not absorb all that, right? So kind of each have your cake and eat it too, in a way. So cows have some real advantages from a tax standpoint, and it's a nice place to build wealth.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and flip the coin and look at what you consider to be the real downsides to owning a set of cows. And again, I want to reemphasize this is owning cows in a cow-calf operation.
All right. So here's the biggest one, I think, is most people are competing in the commodity market when they sell their calves, right? You're selling your calves next to everybody else. And commodity markets by their nature are long-term break-even markets, right? So the cost that you're selling at is going to level out at the cost of production for the average Joe, right? Okay. So now when you look at the cow-calf market, who are you competing with, right? Who are the other people that are raising these calves that are selling them into the same market you are? Okay. Now, if you step back and take a look at the whole beef industry of the U.S., you might know this number. What's the average size cow herd across the U.S.? Do you have an idea what it is?
Oh, I'm guessing around 40 head. I don't know. I mean, it's not a very.
I think it's smaller than that.
Is it smaller than that?
It's more like 20. Yeah, more like 20 or something.
I just know it's not as big as I think it is, you know.
Right. And that surprises a lot of people, right? But so the average Joe raising cows is somebody in Mississippi, Louisiana, Missouri, Texas that has, 20 cows in his backyard, right? And he goes to work every day, drawing a wage, and gets home and enjoys going out and feeding those cows, right? And takes care of them. At some point, every now and then, they wean some calves or they sell some cows, and they sell them to however they normally do, whether it's taking them to a sale barn. And they really don't care what they bring. I mean, they do, but they don't, right? They don't need those animals to put food on the table, right? It's much more of a hobby than it is a business. So, yes. And then you look at the other people that are in the market, and what does every retired surgeon or lawyer want to do, right? Yeah. They want to own cows, right? So our competition in the cow-calf business are people that are willing to subsidize their cows with off-farm income and sell those calves at far less than the cost of production. So that's who your competition is, right? So your competition in this commodity market is somebody that's willing to subsidize that and sell it at a loss. And here you are competing in the same market with them, right? So the cows are that nature, because there's so many people that want to play in this business. The cows, by their very nature, are going to be a more competitive market for profitability than the other markets that we could play in, right? I mean, you don't see a lot of doctors and lawyers saying, "Oh, I want to have a ranch, and the thing I want to do is flip coal cows," right? I mean, that doesn't have the same appeal that having this home-raised cow herd that we're very proud of, right? That we can put people in the pickup and take them out and show them, and they're all one color and they're all this, and right? Who cares about the profitability of them? They never talk about that because, when you look at it on paper, it's a bloody mess. But when they, so that's your competition. So I think by some of the rules of that, it's almost always going to make cow-calf enterprise a really difficult enterprise to turn a profit in.
Dallas, so when we get then, as you've talked about this, and you say, well, there's not a lot of upsides to this. I mean, there's some upsides to it, but it's more from an investment side of things. What about some of these outfits that are owning their own herds? I mean, there is some exceptions to that. So explain to me maybe how the exceptions that are making these own cow herds are working. What are they doing, though, that's making it work?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, because I'm speaking in generalities here, right? And then when I say cow-calf are not very profitable, well, there's some people that are really, really profitable doing cows. There's a lot of people on the marginal side, and then there's a whole pile of people that are losing their shirt doing cows. So what are the people that are making it work doing? You need to identify that competitive advantage, right? And as you look at some of these operations that are making cows work, and I get to look at quite a few numbers a year, so I feel like I've got some pretty good perspective on this. There's some of these that have some kind of competitive advantage that they're exploiting with that cow herd, right? Maybe it's an advantageous lease that says, hey, this lease is set up for running cows on it, right? And if it were on the open market lease, the rates would be a lot higher, but they've got an inroad there somehow, so they're able to lease that at far less than the cost on the open market would be, and it's set up for running cows, right? And maybe you need that home-raised cow herd that's adapted to that country. Maybe it's really rough country or got some other challenges to it, so we can make that work. There's quite a few that are using the cow herd to market some kind of premium product, right? So whether that is, maybe we're selling bread packages of bred cows, maybe those calves are going into some kind of a market that we've worked to identify and develop. We could all probably think of a dozen examples of those. But there's some kind of competitive advantage that ranch has developed over time that allows them to do that. Another example with this would be somebody that's just a really low cost producer. I mean, they've got a model that on the cost side of things is beating the socks off of their competition, right? And they're, if calves are selling for $800, they're able to get them in there at $200 cheaper than everybody else can. So maybe they've got some real leverage on the cost side. I hear a lot of talk of that, and I see a lot of people claim that. And when we actually get down into exploring what their numbers say, that doesn't pan out. Sure. So, if your listeners are thinking, yeah, that's me, I've got real advantages on the cost side, I would challenge. I'd say, well, then show me, right? Prove it. Put it on paper. Because I hear a lot of talk to that, and I don't see that pan out a lot. So that's one of those things I'd push back on a little bit. So yeah, I think that's what the people that are making it work are doing. And then, to be honest, there's a lot of ranches that have chosen, that have made the distinction that we're going to run cows, right? And that's part of their value statement. That's part of what they've put forward and a decision they've made. And it's management's job to figure out how to make that work, right? So if they looked at it economically, they could make a lot more money doing something else than running cows. But their ownership body has determined this is what we want to do. Now go out and figure out how to make that work for us, right? So and that's fine. I'm not saying that, boy, that's a bad thing at all. I mean, where I get a little bit bowed up is when you have a ranch that says, hey, we're really having a tough time making things work economically, financially. Maybe I want to bring Junior back to the business, but yet we also just want to run cows, right? We're not willing to explore other alternatives. And we could look at that, and in 30 minutes of looking at it, you could say, well, gosh, if we didn't have these cows and we did this thing would work. Right. And they've never taken the opportunity to seriously consider what that might look like.
So let's take a break here. And when we come back, let's get into that. What are some other options that we could be looking at on a ranching operation that would potentially replace that owning cattle in a cow-calf enterprise that maybe you are currently in on your ranch? So we're going to talk about that when we come back on the Working Ranch Radio Show. Living in the country means working in the country, and that calls for a tough tractor. Well, Bobcat has 15 models in its compact tractor lineup from 21 to 58 horsepower. With the help of your local Bobcat dealer, you'll find a perfect match for your property and to-do list. Get a look at all the different models at bobcat.com, and while you're there, use the Build and Quote tool to design your ideal machine. Get yourself one tough tractor from one tough animal. Bobcat. Visit bobcat.com.
Whoa, Herefords are the efficiency experts for a reason. In crossbreeding systems, Herefords boost pregnancy rates by 7% and add $30 per head in feed yard profitability. And Hereford genetics bring unrivaled hybrid vigor, longevity, and disposition. Now that'll stop you in your tracks. Come home to Hereford for more pounds, more calves, and more profit. Visit Hereford.org for a sale near you.
And welcome back here again to the Working Ranch Radio Show. I'm Justin Mills. My guest today is Dallas Mount, CEO for Ranch Management Consultants. And if you're just joining us on the program, we started everything out with kind of throwing a question out there and creating a little bit of a stir on whether owning cows in a cow-calf ranching operation is really the best route to be going. And we've talked a little bit about that. But now we're going to getting into, as we left before the break, Dallas talking about folks looking or being open to other options. And so, Dallas, now let's get into that and let's talk about what are some other options or some other alternatives that we could be looking at.
So let's start with custom grazing, because when I look at things economically, we kind of default to that custom grazing, right? Because there's something that's fairly easy to do, that's high demand for, and everything we're going to do on top of that should be better than that, right? Or that could kind of be the default, right? So custom grazing, I know not everybody uses that word. It's essentially getting paid for running somebody else's cow. Okay, so you're usually the custom grazer is providing feed and care for somebody else's livestock. And just to be fully open, this is what I do with our place down here around Wheatland, Wyoming, is we take in custom grazed cattle for a client. We've had the same client for a long time. Now, I'll tell you, we could do other things and make more money than the custom graze. But for me, the cow business, is kind of a side hustle, really. And so I need something that works really well with my main job, which is running the company here, right? So the custom graze aligns really well with my other commitments. But let's talk custom graze. So if every market is different, like, saying, well, what's the custom grazing rate in your area is kind of like asking the same price. What's hay worth in your area, right? I mean, there's going to be some places in the country right now where hay is going to sell for, right, $60 a ton, and then there's going to be other places where hay's bringing over $300.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so you're going to have those same variations in the custom graze market. If we picked kind of a center point in the U.S., I might say somewhere around that $40 per cow per month might be a safe number to use for a custom graze rate. Not everybody's going to be able to get that depending on where they are, but some people are going to be, that's going to be way low. Right. So let's use a $40 custom graze rate. So if I were to custom graze somebody else's cow for 12 months out of the year, then I would get paid $480 for grazing that cow for 12 months. Right. So that's feed and care. Now, most people that do custom grazing are not going to do it on a 12-month basis. They're going to do it more on a 6-month basis. Right. But if we annualize it, now we can compare it to an owned cow. Okay. So $480, that's gross margin. That's essentially what they're paying me. I don't have any direct costs out of that. Right. So, I mean, there's some examples where I got to provide salt and mineral, but that would be pretty minor. So $480 gross margin on a cow. Now, I'll tell you, I look at a lot of owned cows that have a gross margin somewhere around $250. Okay. Now, we don't have time today to get into how we figure out gross margin, but there's the comparable, right? So an owned cow that's making a gross margin of $250 per cow compared to a custom grazed cow that's making a gross margin of $480 per cow. Okay. So if that's the numbers, what those numbers are telling us is, wait a minute, we could sell that cow herd, we could bank that money, we could run somebody else's cow, and let's even run it for 6 months out of the year instead of 12 months out of the year. We'll run twice the number of them, right? Twice the number of them for 6 months out of the year, and we'll make almost twice as much in gross margin. And that's not all that unusual to find that is that running somebody else's cow is sometimes more profitable than running our own cow. Okay. So the custom grazing, I don't want your listeners to hear that I'm telling everybody they should go out and custom graze cows, right? That's not at all what I'm saying, but I am saying it's a useful number to know, right? What could I make by not owning a cow herd, by running somebody else's cow herd, and maybe for only doing stuff 6 months out of the year instead of having to be tied up here 12 months out of the year taking care of these things.
Well, and I think it gets back to what you said before. If you're an operation out there and you're wanting to bring Junior back, or you have been struggling and you're wondering how are we going to make these ends meet, then the baseline we need to be looking at is, if I custom grazed, here's the baseline that we could be doing with that. If we can't meet or exceed that gross margin that just grazing somebody else's cattle is out, maybe we're not doing something where we should be. Maybe we need to change things up. That's essentially kind of what you're saying.
You got it. Yeah. So if you can show me that, hey, my owned cow makes $480 of gross margin or $500 of gross margin, I'm all in.
Sure.
Right? I'm all in on those owned cows. But I think you're right. Let's use that as a baseline to say, if we're going to own these things, they better do better than that.
Let's talk about some other enterprise options, some other ways as well that could involve cattle as well.
Sure. Yeah. So the list is pretty long. I mean, if we sat down and brainstormed for half an hour, I bet we'd come up with 30 different things that involve cattle that are different enterprises we could do rather than just own our own cow herd. between you and I, let's rattle some off here to get everybody thinking. So, running a leased cow herd, right, where I'm paying the owner of that cow a cash lease per year on that cow. Running a share cow herd, where they get a portion, I get a portion of the calf crop, they get a portion of the calf crop, right? I don't have to own them. Short-term cows, right, where I'm buying some cattle and maybe flipping them in some way or sell them another way. Developing a breeding herd where I'm essentially buying young animals, growing up to a young bred cow, a middle-aged cow, and selling those animals. So it's more kind of a right. My product is a bred cow.
Sure.
In addition to the calves I'm having, running bulls for other people, right? Maybe the neighbors have those bulls they don't want to deal with out of the year, so I'm going to be essentially a bull farm. What are some ideas you have that we could add to that? And I picked the easy ones.
Yeah, no doubt. Geez, pick the low hangers there. Well, I think when you're talking grass and cattle, and I don't want to, it's kind of maybe that we're getting in the same thing, but I think there's some yearling opportunities there that people don't necessarily get into the yearling thing because they've, whether they want to grass them or whether they want to work with somebody on them, because there's some perceived risk there, and there's risk in anything. So I think, some of the yearling types, operations maybe have some opportunities.
Yep. Yeah. Yearlings for sure. And that would lend itself to things like heifer development, right? So I could buy heifer calves and grow them up, and a bred heifer could be a product. Open heifer could be a product of that. Grass finishing, animals would kind of be another component of yearling, but maybe at a later stage yearling. Right. Spaying heifers, being an accumulation outfit for other places, right, where they're buying and they need a place to park them before they're going to grass. Winter grazing, that one is kind of an interesting one. There's a lot of places especially in the Mountain West, where the highest valued forage, it's actually forage in the wintertime rather than summertime forage. So maybe I just use my ranch to stockpile my feed all year, and then I just take in animals or provide winter grazing services for somebody else to reduce that hay feeding cost for them.
I want to go back and explore a couple things, because when folks look at, okay, I've got this land, or I want to be this ranch, and there's things about being a rancher that I like. For example, everybody likes this time of the year when we're starting to calve. Maybe not when there's a snowstorm, but maybe we ride a few horses on the side, and when we need some horse work out there, and we like to be out there calving and being out in the cattle. There's some enterprise options. You talked about a little bit ago about buying some older age cows, flipping those around. There's still some opportunities out there where folks, if you're wanting, you still to be calving cows out, you can do that and fit into something where it's not necessarily, maybe it's not a year-round deal of running cattle, or it's not owning them, but there's still some opportunities there too.
That's right. Yeah. So I think you bring up an important point, right? The ownership of the ranch needs to identify what are the values that we don't want to give up, right? And maybe those things are, we really like calving. That's a part of it that we really enjoy. We love doing the brandings, right? Maybe that's a piece of, so really look inside of it and say, why do we ranch, right? What about ranching really gets us charged up? And the last thing we want to do is choose an enterprise mix that takes that away from us, right? There's a ranch that we work with, and one of their values is producing these animals that work in their environment, right? That it's a ranch that offers some unique environmental challenges, and they want to have cattle that work in that environment. That's one of the reasons why they ranch. Now, they're very clear that they could do other things and make more money, right? But they've been able to make this work to meet their objectives that they want to do. And I think that's a really valuable exercise to go through and identify what are those things that we do that we really value. You also mentioned the kind of the time of year thing, right? And I think sometimes let's back up here a little bit. In agriculture, as we grow up in this business, and you hear a lot of this hard work value, right? And I appreciate that too, right? But it gets pounded into us so heavy and so hard that, we work hard and we're the hardest working people there are and all these things, right? And I think sometimes our response is to fill any particular downtime we might have with more work. Right. And I see this kind of from the outside looking in at some of these businesses. I'm like, well, you know what? We've got 3 weeks here where we're not doing anything. Maybe we should design some kind of enterprise to completely fill our time in that 3 weeks. And then it's also going to create more work for us during our other times of the year where we're already working 12-hour days. Right. And then they tell me, well, Dallas, I know you say we should work on these numbers and I know we should do these important things, but you don't understand. We're just so stinking busy. Right. And I'm like, I absolutely understand you're so stinking busy, but it's your own dang fault. Right. Because you've built this monster of enterprises and workload that create zero downtime for you. I mean, what if our objective when we set these things out was let's create something we can do in a 20-hour work week? Right. What if we built a ranch that we could do in 20 hours a week? And then we had the other 20 hours to do some working on the business God forbid we take a vacation, right? What if we built these businesses around quality of life as well as things we enjoy? And I think too often the quality of life piece gets thrown out because I don't know if people will say it, but I think there's an underlying fear that the neighbor might catch me not doing physical labor for every hour of when the daylight is out. Right.
Yeah.
And that is I think a very destructive paradigm to having a healthy business is to think that we need to fill every hour with physical labor.
Well, and it's something that probably, if you want to have a generational business, is not sustainable, is what would be my guess. Is that what you'd say?
I would completely agree. It goes back to that quote of Joel Salatin. If we want our kids if I want our kids to come back, we need to build our farms and our ranches that are fun and that are profitable, right? And that romancing that next generation is part of the role of management. Is to create a business that they want to look at and say, man, that looks like a fun business to be a part of, rather than something that requires 18-hour days and is financially unrewarding, right? So I think that should be part of our challenge as we design this enterprise mix is what's something that we can do that gives us some, like you said, calving season is upon us right now. And I love that as well. Right. But at the end of it, after you've been doing it for 60, 90 days, I'm ready for it to be over. Right.
Yeah.
So how do we build these things that are, that offer that balance?
Yeah. Before we jump into the next subject here, and we were just talking a little bit ago about some enterprise mixes or some different ways that you could be owning cattle. We didn't really touch on some other types of livestock. I know there's some other folks doing some different things, and a lot of that, I've had a lot of conversations with cow guys as we talk about, having cattle. In that conversation is having cattle that fit your environment. But let's open that up. Let's broaden that up a little bit and talk about livestock that fits your operation and your environment, because it may not be talking just specifically cows.
That's right. Yeah. So sheep and goats are the ones that often people need to or come to mind first in that discussion. And I think it's worth exploring. I think some healthy realities in there, though. When you just look at the numbers, when people sit down and just punch the numbers on small ruminants, their eyes get really big and they're like, holy cow, can it really be this good? Right. And I think there's some healthy caution as we start diving into those to say, now, wait a minute, this is not something that often aligns with my skill set or my passion. Right. And so are my results going to be this good? Right. The people that have been doing it for a while might be, their lambing rate might be 1.5, 1.7, right. Whatever it is. If I'm going to do this and it doesn't align with my passions, my skill sets, maybe I need to use a lambing rate of 1.0. Right. And just to kind of caution those things. I think you had did some work on this reason, but it does warrant exploring, right? What are the people that have converted to this? What kind of things are they seeing? And is this something you'd enjoy? Right. Does it align with you? I see a lot of folks, a lot might be an overstatement. I've seen a few folks shift to small ruminants to later come back and realize, I was doing it for the dollar signs that I saw, but it doesn't light my fire. And
Sure.
I think we need to look for things that align with what our passions are.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a break here. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up our conversation. Dallas Mount today, CEO for Ranch Management Consultants, has been my guest. And we're going to have some final thoughts from him and just kind of wrap this all up, that I hope has been a conversation that has created some introspective of your own ranching operation and maybe what you would want to consider as you move forward as well. Stay with us. We have more when we come back on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Sale season's here again, and there are a lot of black-hided Angus bulls on the market, but not all of them are registered. Why take the risk? Don't gamble on unproven genetics. Invest wisely with registered, powered by Angus bulls. Backed by the power of the American Angus Association and 80 million data points, registered Angus bulls give you the confidence in your buying decisions. Don't buy an imposter. Look for the registration number. Buy the power. Buy registered Angus bulls.
There's assurance in buying bulls from a proven program, and a program that's been proven time and time again is Keneally Angus. So mark your calendar now for Keneally Angus Spring Bull Sale, Saturday, March 26th. That's the fourth Saturday of March, offering 550 head of yearling, 18-month, and coming 2-year-old bulls. Now, these bulls are fully guaranteed with free delivery nationwide, and bulls out of the industry's leading sires with genomic-enhanced EPDs. You can buy in person, leave them a bid, or bid online at Northern Livestock Video. For more information or to request a catalog, go to KeneallyAngus.com. It's Keneally Angus Spring Bull Sale, Saturday, March 26th at 12 noon Mountain at the ranch south of Whitman, Nebraska. Welcome back to the Working Ranch Radio Show. Justin Mills here. My guest today is Dallas Mount, CEO for Ranch Management Consultants. He is based out of Wheatland, Wyoming. However, they do have schools all across the country, the Ranching for Profit schools. We're going to talk more about that here in just a moment. But first, Dallas, let's kind of wrap up our conversation. And if you're just joining us, I'd really encourage you to go back and listen to it, because if you jump into it now, you're going to wonder why we're talking about what we are. And we really brought this out and kind of maybe brought the topic out when we really questioned, in a ranching operation, why do we own our cows in a cow-calf enterprise? That's kind of where we started from. We've talked about a lot of different things with that. So if you are just joining us, be sure to go back and listen to that. But Dallas, let's kind of wrap up our conversation regarding this topic here today, and just some final comments from you as we bring this conversation to a close.
Yeah. Put the numbers together and see what they're telling you. If you've got the luxury, you can afford to just do whatever the heck you want to do. Good for you. Who's to take that away from you? But I think the reality is that most ranches these days, things are tight, and we need to dive into these things and look for opportunities. And, if you want to explore it, it might really wake you up. For a 200 to 300 head cow herd, this could be $100,000 a year. But profitability decisions, right? So we're not talking about small dollar amounts here. We're talking about significant value moving. And, and if you, like I said, if you can afford to just ignore it and just do what you've always done, good for you. But I think most people are not in that boat, and we really need to examine what we're doing. Now, I think it might be something that scares you initially to think about moving away from owned cows, right? Because that for most people in ranching, that is a part of the passion as to why they ranch. But with the folks that we've worked with that have looked into this and identified ways to create significant value and then pulled the trigger on it, the rewards and the happiness they find in doing other things oftentimes are more than they thought. Right. Hey, I never realized this could be this much fun. And I never realized how much I would enjoy doing this part of it. Right. And it sure makes ranching a heck of a lot more enjoyable when you've got some room in the budget to do some things. Yep,
you bet. Well, Dallas, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us here on our program. It's always, as I said, when I talked to you about lining this up, I said, you always can come up with something that's very thought-provoking, and so that's why I always just almost blindly throw it out. What do you want to talk about? And you always come up with something that makes everybody think and scratch their heads a little bit. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If everybody goes out and sells their cows when you post this episode and the market crashes, I was not responsible for that. I'm 100% sure that's not going to happen.
Well, before I let you go, I know, as you're the CEO for Ranch Management Consultants, which is the Ranching for Profit schools that are out out there. Most of your schools are through the winter months, fall and winter months. You do have a few summer months schools. Is there some availability still in some of those schools?
So we're headed to Oklahoma to do a school here at the end of April. That one's currently full. We have added a school to the schedule this year in June in Billings, Montana. So that one's about halfway full right now. But there is availability in that. We'll be in Kennewick, Washington in middle of September. If you're in heavy winter country, this is the one I'd go to, is Phoenix, Arizona, the first week of December. So that if I was taking a Ranching for Profit school, that's the one I'd go to. Okay. And then we'll be back into our normal winter schedule following that school, which is around quite a bit. So we had a record year this year with attendance at Ranching for Profit, and a lot of our schools that didn't normally filled early. So if people want to get a specific location for a school, I'd encourage them to go ahead and register, put a deposit down. That'll save your seat for that school. Those deposits are rollable for 13 months after you make them. Good. So if you decide you want to go to a different school, we can work with you on rolling that deposit to those. But yeah, it's been an amazing year. We've added some new instructors to the school, and the feedback we're getting is that the instructors we've added are all in the game of ranching. So they're people that have been a part of the Ranching for Profit, the Executive Link program. They're full-time ranchers in addition to that. And I think that really adds a component of authenticity that deepens the what you get at the school. So I'm really excited about where we're going as a company. It's been an amazing few years. Well,
good deal. All right. Well, Dallas, thanks again for joining us.
You're welcome. Take care.
And again, my guest today has been Dallas Mount, CEO for Ranch Management Consultants. If you'd like to find out more information about what he has going on there in their schools, you can go to ranchmanagement.com. And also, I'd encourage you to, if you have questions about what we talked about here today or something you want to push back against, please do not be afraid to give me a call or shoot me an email as well, justin.workingranch@gmail.com, because I know for myself, it takes me a while to process some of this. And after I have this conversation with Dallas, there's going to be things I'm going to think about, like, why didn't I ask him that? So don't be afraid to get to reach out to me, let me know, or to get a hold of Dallas and visit with him. And like I gave you his website, you can go to ranchmanagement.com and find contact information for him. Well, stay with us. Look at our long-term weather is up as Don Day joins us on the Working Ranch Radio Show. Today's profit-minded rancher is all about a balanced operation, and when it comes to buying bulls, you look for balanced genetics that utilize the advantages of heterosis. For decades, DLCC Ranch has focused on utilizing the strengths of one of the most feed-efficient breeds in the world, South Devon. This British breed simply provides a proven outcross for a commercial or purebred herd that exploits the benefits of heterosis in both terminal and maternal traits like growth, carcass, and stayability. This year, DLCC will be offering over 90 head of South Devon and South Devon Influence composite bulls at their sale on Saturday, April 16th. All bulls will be genomically tested, and they come with a 3-year guarantee. They will also be offering over 50 head of females ranging from elite heifers to replacement heifers and fall pairs. For more information or to request a catalog, go to dlccranch.com. It's the DLCC 30th Annual Production Sale, Saturday, April 16th at the ranch near Pierres, Minnesota, or on Superior's Click to Bid. DLCC, committed to providing South Devon crossbreeding solutions and outcross genetics to commercial cattlemen. Welcome back to the Working Ranch Radio Show as we take a look at our long-term weather, and meteorologist Don Day is joining us as we look at this. And Don, we've already had kind of in the middle of some weather across portions of the country right now, but as we look at kind of the next 10 days out, I know there was a lot of uncertainty as to where some of this weather was going to happen, but it now looks as though some of this winter wheat area down in the southern plains is looking like they're going to get some much-needed moisture.
Yeah, this is great news. It looks like a storm which had its origins up in the Aleutians of Alaska is now working its way into the southern Rockies and into the desert Southwest. And it's a storm system that's tracking much further south than storms have done all winter. Now, we all know about the drought conditions in the panhandles of Texas, how dry it has been in Kansas, Oklahoma, eastern Colorado, and Nebraska. Those hard red winter wheat areas are going to see a really good chance of a little bit of everything. It's going to be rain. It's going to be snow. There could even be some thunderstorms. But there could be some areas, Justin, that with this storm system get well over an inch of water, maybe pushing 2 in some areas. Some of it in the northern and western edges of the storm, especially eastern Colorado, parts of western Kansas and southwest Nebraska could have some heavy snow with this. So this will be really good for those areas. This storm is finally tracking in a direction that will really help out those areas that have been really suffering all winter.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the northern tier of the country. Really winter-wise, the northern tier up into Canada has seen a pretty heavy winter, but it's been pretty nice here lately. What about, say, if you just look across the northern part of the country in southern Canada?
Well, what I see is there's going to be an evening out of things. So we're going to have this storm system go across more of the southern Rockies, southern plains into the central plains. The next system is going to come, well, about a week from now. And that is going to be tracking more across the Pacific Northwest through the central and northern Rockies, and I think into the northern plains. So there's going to be some opportunity for those northern areas of the U.S. and southern Canada to get some March moisture before the month is over.
Okay. All right. Well, I know fog forecasting wise, we've joked about this a little bit or talked about it a little bit, that I don't really have much happening until after this weekend that we're in now, until about first part of June. So I hope we're not going to see a dry spell. I anticipate some moisture between now and then.
I think there's a good chance of that. One thing that we do see through the end of March and into the first week of April, at least, is a really busy stormy pattern in the Gulf of Alaska, which if you get that this time of year, it becomes this kind of a breeding ground for systems that come across the west and northwest areas of the United States. So I am optimistic that if you're in an area that hasn't gotten a good storm yet this early spring season, the odds are pretty good that things will even out and you'll get one.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us and giving us kind of that outlook for the next 10 days of weather here across the country.
Thanks for having me.
And again, that was meteorologist Don Day with a look at our long-term weather. His website can be found at dayweather.com. Well, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to put a wrap on this episode when we return on the Working Ranch Radio Show.
Do you have a young child, grandchild, niece, or nephew that loves the weather and wants to learn more? Day Weather has produced a children's weather journal full of weather facts, fun weather experiments, coloring pages, and pages to record weather observations for every season of the year. The weather journal is for ages 3 to 7 and designed to be fun and educational. The interactive weather projects are fun for the whole family to take part in. For only $10, the Day Weather Journal is a great gift idea for any occasion. Click on our Amazon link to order at dayweather.com.
If you could do something today that would bring you a profit tomorrow, would you do it? In the cattle business, it's about efficiency. And with Limousine Genetics in your herd, your profit is just one calf crop away. With Limousine or Limplex cattle, it's more pounds naturally to sell at weaning. It's growth and feed efficiency with the added benefit of carcass merit. The other side of the profit coin with Limousine Genetics is the maternal efficiency, docility, and longevity of your cows and bulls. It's as simple as Limousine today, profit tomorrow.
Well, before I jump in the pickup to go out feed some cows here this morning, I want to thank my guest Dallas Mount with Ranch Management Consultants for joining us on our program. Also, a thank you to our sponsors, the American Simmental Association. It's more per head, period. Find out more at simmental.org. Bobcat, one tough tractor. Visit bobcat.com. And the American Hereford Association, come home to Hereford. And the North American Limousine Foundation, limousine cattle deliver to your bottom line. And the American Angus Association. Look for that registration number when you're buying bulls. Buy the power, buy registered Angus bulls. Don't forget Keneally Angus Spring Bull Sale coming up on Saturday, March 26th. That'll also be on Northern Livestock Video. KeneallyAngus.com is where you can check out a sale catalog. And also DLCC Ranch with their 30th annual production sale coming up on Saturday, April 16th, offering over 90 head of South Devon and South Devon influenced composite bulls. Their website is dlccranch.com. The Working Ranch Radio Show is a production of Working Ranch Ranch Magazine. Be sure to join us right here each and every week at this same time. Coming up in the next 3 weeks, here are some of the guests: Jim Garish, Martin Black, and also we'll be talking on the beef chain. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Justin Mills, and until next time, keep your chin down and your mind in the middle. So long.